Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast with me, James Dickson. Wishing you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you tune into today's podcast from. And it's a slightly unusual feeling for me. I usually record the podcast on a Monday, bright and early at the start of the week, and I've got a really I feel a bit more of a relaxed state today because it's a Friday afternoon. For context, we're recording on the 18th of October. This will likely go out in the next couple of weeks, certainly because it relates to something that's taking place in November at Event Sustainability Live. Registration is open for Event Sustainability Live, returning to Excel London at the end of November. Go to eventsustainabilitylive.com and register for free to get access to all of the content and the exhibitors that are at Event Sustainability Live, as well as Event Tech Live, which is co-located with the show. And the reason I say all of that at the start of today's episode rather than at the end, which is when I usually give those little mentions, is because Event Sustainability Live and one of the sessions that takes place at Event Sustainability Live in one of the conference theatres is relevant to today's conversation. We're going to be talking and looking into and finding out a bit more on the subject of greenwashing, what it is, how it manifests itself within the events industry. And we've got two people who will not only be part of that subject and that discussion in that session that I mentioned at Event Sustainability Live, but who have also very generously given up some of their time today to come onto the podcast and give us a little bit of an explanation about that subject matter, and a little bit of a taste of what could be mentioned and spoken about during that session. So I'm delighted to introduce today's guests. First of all, we have the founder and the MD of Syntiro Associates, Sam Wilson, joining us. Sam, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, James. Good morning, everyone watching.
And alongside Sam today, we've got the founding partner of Terrafiniti, Dominic Tantram, Dr. Dominic Tantram, I should say, who's again kindly given up his time this morning to join us. Dominic, a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much, James, and welcome everybody. I'm delighted to be here.
As I said, this is a great opportunity to give a little bit of a taster of a session that really is only a matter of weeks away. This will be the second edition of Event Sustainability Live in London, and the first show was met with a lot of great positive feedback, and certainly from a lot of the people that I spoke to at the show, one of the biggest comments was how relaxed everyone is about talking honestly about the subject of sustainability within the events industry. There's been a lot of sort of cloak and dagger and people almost sort of skirting around the issue. And some people who felt almost afraid to tackle it and discuss it for fear of saying the wrong thing or not perhaps thinking that they're an expert in the subject. And I suppose one of the biggest takeaways from last year was that everybody came in with quite an open mindset and an honest policy of saying if they didn't know something, they were there to learn about it. And I think that this particular subject, unless I'm corrected otherwise on today's discussion, is certainly going to be one of those. If I could come to you both of all before we get into the discussion and just ask for a little bit of an introduction from you both. Sam, let's come to you first of all. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and what Syntiro do?
Certainly, James, thanks. So I'm managing director of Syntiro Associates. So we started out about 18, 19 years ago now, and we're a consortium of professionals who helped clients to develop really robust sustainability strategies. So where they want to be, how they're going to get there, and that operational toolkit that really drives the engine. And we use a blend of international best practice. So whether it's international standard, the new ISO 2012-1, has just come out, by the way, UN SDG mapping, GRI standards, B Corp. So we blend all that together to take you through to where you want to be as an organization.
Fabulous. And Dominic, same to you. Tell us a little bit about your own professional background and Terrafiniti.
Okay, I will keep it short because I've been working in sustainability, I dare to say, for more than 30 years. Terrafiniti is a very small specialist international sustainability strategy company, and we help companies in the UK, Europe and beyond to navigate the complexity of sustainability and build strategies and management plans for how to respond to that. I'm also an associate of Syntiro, and have worked in recent years very closely with Sam on a number of projects.
Fabulous. Thank you to you both for the succinct synopsis of what you both do. Let's dive straight into it, Dominic, if we may. Greenwashing, what is it?
What is it? So it's actually quite simple to describe. It's more difficult and complex when you get into the ins and outs of it. But to describe it, it's a communication, and we'll dig into that a bit more, but it's communication that's fundamentally in some way misleading or incorrect about the environmental, or in fact social as well, sustainability issues are included, performance of a business, its products or services. The key thing about it is, in fact, a lot of greenwashing is unintentional. So while some definitions actually say intentional misleading, I think a lot of it's actually unintentional and done perhaps in ignorance, but without knowing, that that's actually what's happening. Very importantly as well, it can be across any sort of communication channel. So it can be when you need to engage on sustainability with partners or stakeholders or investors. It can be often commonly your marketing and sales messages. But it can be also more formal reporting and disclosure as well. So it's across any of those sort of channels of communication and across any media. So it could be a social media, could be a tweet, it could be a post, it could be a sales message, it could be product messaging or packaging, it could be an advert, it could be an investor relations report. It's possible to, if you go the wrong way, to mislead in any of those sort of areas.
And Sam, if I could come to you, when you work with clients in the events industry, whether, and again, I'm making assumptions here, so feel free to correct me at any point, both of you. Is it fair to say that there is an element of events organizations who are doing this knowingly because they think it's a good bit of PR for them, but there will also be a percentage who are doing it sort of unwittingly, who don't even realize that they're doing this? What are some of the most common ways that it manifests itself within the events industry?
Oh, that's a really good question. Would you mind first if I answered the importance of why it's so important to the events industry?
Please do.
Because I think that's kind of like the next step, and then we can look at whether it's intentional, which, by the way, I think
I'm being led by the experts today. I'm being led by the experts. Please do.
So just building on from what Dominic said, there's a lot of talk at the moment, particularly with the new sustainability regulations coming in from the EU around double materiality. Now, lots of people who are listening to this may have heard the name materiality or double materiality. Essentially what it means, you've got to find out what's core to your business. Where are your core business impacts, risks and opportunities when it comes to sustainability? It's so easily to sort of paddle in the shallow end and deal with the thing that's most visible, but what's core? And the reason this is so important for events in any communications organization actually is because it's literally what we do. It's core to our business service. We communicate, that's what we do. So whether it's promoting a brand to customers, whether it's facilitating internal company events, whether it's engaging our stakeholders, as Dominic's just said, it's literally our core business. So it's tremendously material for us to look at and cannot be avoided. It's part of our professional service.
Right.
The second bit you said was about the intentional and unintentional.
Absolutely.
I think this is probably because, and why I started with materiality, is because a lot of people that I meet haven't done that. They haven't done their materiality assessment. And because of that, they're talking about the great stuff that they've done. Like it might be we're reducing our carbon emissions, but perhaps one of your most material issues is the social impacts in your supply chain. Now, if you're just talking about your carbon emissions, but you're not talking about the other material issues, you've greenwashed and you don't know it. So it starts with understanding what your material impacts, risks and opportunities are, that strategy. Then you can be very sure that the communications coming out of that reflect all of your material issues and not just cherry pick one of them.
Interesting. Dominic, I could see you nodding away there. And one thing that's cropped up on this podcast when we've talked about the subject of sustainability within the events industry is a fundamental lack of understanding as to what sustainability actually encompasses and covers. And this idea that, oh, well, we're using recyclable coffee cups and we're trying to not use plastic bottles of water, that it's all linked with carbon footprint, that it's all linked with recycling. It is greenwashing driven still in the events industry by a lack of understanding as to what the term sustainability actually encompasses?
I don't think I'd be so presumptuous as to claim that, but certainly the things you mentioned look like symptoms of that. Yeah. And there are a number of things tied up in there. So obviously recycling is a response to a number of environmental issues. So it does relate to carbon, it relates to waste or avoiding waste, and it relates to efficient material use, amongst some other things. Recycling is known as a fairly low-grade response. There's a hierarchy of better to worse, and it's right down near the bottom, just above energy from waste or landfilling it. Mm-hmm. So, but in the public perception, it's much wider than the events industry. It's in most sectors and in public perception. Recycling is seen as a very valuable thing. Now, it's not to say that it's not or discourage anyone from it, but there are other more valuable responses often higher up that hierarchy. So some of it is that. Just to sort of drill down slightly on something Sam mentioned and with the materiality, a classic tactic in greenwashing is to cherry pick a good news item where you've got something to say, or in fact maybe some genuine performance, such as on carbon, but not address the other important issues that someone would want to know about how you're reacting to and managing. So it's almost like a card trick. It's sort of look here, not there.
So yeah.
Again, that can be unintentional rather than deliberate. The problem is whether you can't tell what someone's intention is from a communication largely. So if you look like the bad guys, people may assume you're behaving like the bad guys.
Interesting. And I guess from a comms point of view, any comms person will tell you, that any story that you put out there about any business can be interpreted in two different ways. I mean, it's classic politics. One party will interpret a press release or a set of statistics in one way, and the opposing party will straight away say, oh yes, but we interpret them like this. Sam, I can see you nodding. I guess that in many respects, because we are so driven by statistics and data in the events industry, that I guess greenwashing is another element where we could fall foul of putting out information and statistics thinking that they're going to be positive, but running the risk of them being interpreted in maybe a different direction.
I love that you mentioned that. So a lot of this is how we frame the claim. You've got to make sure it's clear, and I'm taking one from Dr. Dominic here: clear, accurate, and substantiated. Is it clear? Is it accurate? Is it substantiated? But then when you've got that, it's like, right, how do I frame this claim so it complies with the guidance of the Green Claim Code, which, as we know, is embedded in law? So a lot of the work that we do together, actually, Dominic and I do together, is we look at what people want to put out and we vet it for compliance with the Green Claims Code. A lot of it is, how do we talk about this? Now, the issue sometimes here is you've got the marketing department over here taking something that the event's done over here and not seeking advice on the data itself, or glossing it in such a way that they inadvertently break the code. And I think why, again, coming back to why it's so important for the events industry, is that it can go in a nanosecond. Once you've released it into the public domain, you have lost control over it.
Can I just pick up on something? I've just scribbled it here. You said, as we know, embedded in law. I didn't know that. Could you just tell people listening to this today what that actually means, and essentially what the consequences are of what you've just said?
Dominic?
At a high level, yeah. So the Green Claims Code is, in fact, it's guidance on the law. So I guess, strictly speaking, it's the other way around to what Sam said, but what she said was entirely accurate. So because the law is difficult for non-lawyers to navigate, the Competition and Markets Authority has published the Green Claims Code, which is a relatively plain English It is plain English explanation of how to interpret the law. Now, it actually says very clearly it isn't the law, but it sits right next to it. There are a range of rules and regulations which govern what you can communicate in terms of environmental claims, and a number of different regulators. So the main regulators in the UK are the Advertising Standards Authority, the Competition and Markets Authority, and if it's financial related, the FCA, Financial Conduct Authority. And they're the main regulators. They're looking to coordinate with each other much more closely. At the moment, the Advertising Standards Agency, in terms of when it can go wrong, will ban adverts. I don't think at the moment they have any finding powers, but most brands will be horrified to think that their ads get banned. And of course, it makes a bad news story that's instantly picked up in industry press. In fact, widespread, it might be in Market Week or The Drum, but it will also be in the mainstream press.
Absolutely, yeah.
So-and-so's ad was banned, because it makes a nice, neat little story for someone to run with. The other thing to sort of bear in mind in terms of the environment is a lot of NGOs, non-governmental organisations and activist groups out there looking to pursue their agenda, whether you agree with it or not. A lot of people do, a lot of people don't. And they'll be looking for instances where they can help pursue that agenda. And that might be by calling out a company that they feel is performing badly. They'll look to try and catch them out. And then they will make a complaint to the ASA or the CMA themselves.
Go on, Sam, jump in.
Oh, you could see me wanting to take the baton back, didn't you, James? So I just want to land on a couple of stats, actually, and I'm going to call out up to the light here because it's their statistic, not ours. 72% of clients, one of their biggest fears is to be accused of greenwashing. So what role do we play as communicators to ensure that they don't do that? We have a responsibility to vet their claims if they're asking us to support it, to ensure that they're not doing it. We mustn't be afraid of calling it out. It's part of our responsible conduct. It's part of what we need to be doing. And indeed, I'm going to say this, it's an additional revenue stream if you do it right.
Interesting.
It's an additional... So can I just say one more? They're also looking for us to be very strategic. So we've talked about strategy here. No longer are clients just wanting us to do the tactical quick wins. They're looking for strategy, they're looking for support, and they're looking to us to help them do it.
So I guess what I'm taking away in my sort of limited understanding of this by comparison to the two of you is that if an organization, and in this case an events organization, is undertaking things correctly from beginning to end in terms of their plan going forward, their strategic plans for how they wish to shape their company and approach the subjects of sustainability, if they're doing it from thread to needle in a correct way and they have a plan to do it, there shouldn't be any fear of putting any communications out there and being labeled as greenwashing, because fundamentally what they'll be able to do is back it up. If somebody comes at them with an accusation, they can say, but we're doing all of this. So I guess the people who are potentially fearing recriminations or backlash on any communications are the ones who probably know that they're guilty of not undertaking a full strategic analysis. Would that be fair?
I think so, but I also think there's a lot of people out there who think they understand it, but they don't. I hope I'm not offending anyone. It's a very technical area of work. It's a technical area of expertise, and you need help. You need to look at your whole organization, get help with your organizational strategy, but then really capacity build to gear up those people who work with clients to understand it, to call it out and know what the solution is.
And I guess one key question, Dominic, that we haven't asked yet is for the companies who know that they're doing it and they know, right, let's bang this out and make it look like we're playing ball. Why do they feel the need to greenwash?
That's a really good question. And it goes to intention as well, which is often difficult to understand. So what we can see from the really detailed work we've done with some clients is I think there's an inherent tension between the positive messages you're seeking, particularly in sales and marketing kind of messages, and the need to be clear, accurate, and substantiated, as Sam said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in fact is the CMA's. If you boil down the Green Claims Code, it says be clear, accurate, and substantiated. So to what you were talking about previously, it's possible there are different levels of greenwashing. So there's greenwashing when you communicate about the fundamental performance, the strategy bit Sam was talking about of your business. And then there's, if you like, a much more technical one of you need to keep your claims very specifically within the guidelines for the ASA and the CMA to not fall foul of them. And while I said the ASA doesn't fine people, the CMA has got new powers coming in next year to fine companies up to 5% of turnover if they infringe the rules. So massive stick there as well. But I think why do they do it? They want to tell a good story. It's actually a very uncomfortable place to sit to tell no story about sustainability now. Yeah. Now, this sort of fear of greenwashing has led to another term called green hushing, of companies keeping quiet because they're uncertain or unsure, and they're not quite sure what the landscape is and how to navigate it, so they keep quiet. That's an uncomfortable place to sit now because everyone wants to know what you're doing on these important issues. So the key really answer is it's entirely possible to communicate as long as it's the right communication. If you've got more good news to talk about because you've integrated your strategy and you've taken it seriously, you've got much more to communicate than a company that hasn't. But if you're a company that hasn't, you've got very little to say on this agenda without getting into trouble.
And I guess, you know, the message there and the beauty about bringing it sort of full circle is that, you know, I said at the start of today's recording that we are effectively preempting a bigger conversation that's going to take place within the session that both of you are participating in at Event Sustainability Live. And everything that you've just said in those last couple of minutes brings us back round to this is why people need to be coming, not just to this particular event, but any other sustainability related conversation that's taking place in the events industry, of which there are many at the moment, and long may it continue, is people need to be engaging, don't they, Sam? They need to be coming along to things like this, whether it's Event Sustainability Live or other, you know, smaller events that are being organized in the industry. They need to participate. They need to come in here with an open mind and start learning.
Completely agree. And it's also about that mind shift change. We're talking about core enterprise risk and opportunity here. We're not talking about a peripheral issue. This is core to your business. Avoid it at your peril. And if you do learn about it, you can equip not just your team, but your company to make that increased revenue, that sustained growth in this particular area.
And Dominic, I suppose as we start to look at wrapping up, a direct question: why should people come along to this session?
Oh, I think I just echo and amplify Sam. It's important to share to understand some of the issues, understand the risk, so you're able to confront it and make your own decisions about what's needed for you and your company. And it's a chance to learn a lot very quickly. From a range of people, not just ourselves, or just blow our trumpets. There's an awful lot of really valuable content there, and the chance to talk to people in the sector and explore these issues and share challenges and solutions.
Excellent. Thank you to you both. Unmasking Greenwashing in the Events Industry, Understanding, Identifying and Avoiding Misleading Practices will take place at Event Sustainability Live on the Event Sustainability Live main stage, Thursday the 21st of November at 11 a.m. is this particular session. But a reminder that the show itself takes place on the 20th and the 21st with full content on the main stage and 2 other theatres at Event Sustainability Live. So you've got 3 theatres worth of conference content taking place over 2 days, and all of the sessions there offering something to anybody who works at any level in the events industry who just wants to learn and improve their understanding about this topic of sustainability. Alongside the conference session, of course, there'll be suppliers, contractors, companies who supply and consult and work within the events industry, specifically on the topic of sustainability, that anybody who registers for free to attend this particular event can go and meet and find out a little bit more. Thank you to you both for your time today. I've been joined by the MD of Syntiro Associates, Sam Wilson, and Dr. Dominic Tantram, the founding partner at Terrafiniti. And a couple of little mentions before we wrap up. Alongside Event Sustainability Live is Event Tech Live, returning to Excel London again. If you register for one or either of those events, you get access to both. So if you register for the Sustainability Live show, you will get access to Event Tech Live and vice versa. And just a final reminder, again, both of those events are free to attend. So if you work in the events industry, please do get yourself registered. 20th and the 21st of November is when they return to Excel London. My thanks again to both my guests. It's been great. We've tried deliberately today, and I should be, in the interest of complete transparency, not to give away too much, because what we didn't want to do on today's podcast is discuss everything that maybe is going to be discussed in this session at the show itself, but maybe give people a little bit of a teaser, whet their appetites a little bit, and encourage you to get along. And I'm sure if you track down either of our guests today on the internet, they would be more than happy to extend this conversation with anybody listening today who wants to get in touch either with Terrafiniti or with Syntiro Associates and find out a little bit more. Thanks to you both. We will see everybody on the next edition of the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.